Welcome to week 11 of my NFL predictions. Last week in week 10, I went 10-4, putting my current record this year at 152. And the teams on the bye week are Bucks, Cardinals, Giants, and Panthers. And with that out of the way, we'll start off with the Thursday night football game, Commanders at Eagles, NFC East matchup. Commanders last week losing to the Steelers by a singular point in heartbreaking fashion. They could have easily won that game, but they just couldn't get the job done. And the Eagles able to absolutely kill the Cowboys. And, it wasn't like super shocking that they beat the Cowboys, but it's always nice to beat a division rival, especially considering how much those teams hate each other. So both these teams, Commanders need to try and get back on track because they lost, although it was to a pretty solid Steelers team, so not the worst loss in the world. And I actually do think the Commanders are going to win because even last year when the Commanders were terrible, they played the Eagles very competitively, and I don't see that being any different now that they're good. And I do think they will get a victory. I think they'll win 27-23. Moving to our first 1 o'clock game, we got another divisional matchup. This time the NFC North. It's between the Packers and the Bears. Packers had a bye week last week, and the Bears, they got embarrassed against the Patriots. No pun intended. But, they don't look very good. Caleb Williams isn't as good as you would expect, and the offensive play calling, which has been a problem all year, was horrible in that game. And they did fire their offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. So I think their offense might be better, but at the same time, the Bears, they're just a mess. I don't really see this team being competitive with, good teams anytime soon. They're on a 3-game losing streak, and it's just not looking good for them right now. I'm not going to lie. Not trying to be negative, but they need to get their shit figured out. So I'm going to pick the Packers to win this one 24-17. Next game up on the slate, we got the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Tennessee Titans. Vikings barely beating the Jags, and the Titans losing to the Chargers in pretty embarrassing fashion. And the Vikings, I'll start with them. They won, but that game gave me a lot of concerns about this team, offensively. Because Sam Darnold had 3 interceptions in that game, and they couldn't score a single touchdown. Their offense fucking sucked in that game. And it's not like the Jags are a good team. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL. So, I guess the good news for the Vikings is this week they're playing a also not great team in the Titans, because they're also one of the worst teams in the NFL. So I do think the Vikings will win, just because I don't see Will Levis doing well against this defense, which is still pretty good, by the way. So I think that will help them win this game. I got it being close, so I have the Vikings winning 17-10. Next up, we have the Raiders taking on the Dolphins. The Raiders had a bye week last week, and the Dolphins shockingly beat the Rams on Monday Night Football. And they looked pretty good in that game defensively, and their offense did enough to win the game against the solid Rams team. So I got to give credit to the Dolphins for doing that. I definitely didn't expect that. And I do think they will win this game just because the Raiders aren't a great team offensively outside of Brock Bowers, and their defense has been horribly underperforming. And, at this point, I really don't see why the Raiders would even care that much about winning, because I feel like they're more worried about draft placement and things like that. They want to get Shedeur Sanders, and winning could, fuck that up. So I think Dolphins are going to be caring a lot more about this game than the Raiders. It's at home. I think the Dolphins are a better team. So I got the Dolphins winning this one pretty handedly with a score of 20-7. Next up, we got the Rams taking on the Patriots. The Rams shockingly losing to the Dolphins, as I actually just mentioned on Monday Night Football. And the Patriots shockingly winning on Sunday against the Bears last week. And the Rams, I talked about it in the last game, but like they did not look good, unlike the Dolphins. They didn't score a touchdown in that game. Their offense looked flat. Their defense couldn't really stop Tua, despite him struggling since he's come back. And the Patriots, I don't want to try and discredit the Patriots, but I think it was more the Bears just playing like shit than them doing anything. But a win's a win, and you always got to, be happy when your rookie quarterback plays good and you win a game and you're rebuilding. So I don't want to take that away from the Patriots, but I'm still going to pick the Rams. I don't see any way they lose 2 in a row to 2 inferior teams. So I'm going to pick the Rams to win 23-13. Next up, we got the Cleveland Browns taking on the New Orleans Saints. Browns had a bye week, so nothing really to say there. And the Saints able to beat their arch rival Falcons and snap their 7-game losing streak. So it's always going to feel good to snap a losing streak and beat a division rival in the same week, and the Saints did just that. And they got a tiny bit of momentum. I mean, nothing crazy. It's only one game, but you got this momentum. And when you're playing a team like the Browns who haven't played their best this season, it's going to help in your quest to beat them. And I do think the Saints will win this game. It's a home game. And, they have momentum. They have their new head coach, who everyone seems to like more than Dennis Allen. And, I think because of how bad the Browns have played this season, they've looked a little better since Deshaun Watson went down with an injury, but at the same time, it's still not a great situation over there. So I'm going to pick the Saints to win 24-21. Next on the slate of games, we got the Colts taking on the Jets. The Colts lost to the Bills last week, and the Jets lost to the Cardinals last week. And I'm not going to lie, both these teams aren't in great situations. Colts are going to start Anthony Richardson in this game, and I think they should. Joe Flacco's looked terrible ever since he took over starting duties for AR. And I think it's the right move. Just give him some playing time. And the Jets are a whole nother mess. You got Aaron Rodgers, kind of being a control freak over the team. And he's also criticizing his own teammates in the media and things like that. And I don't know. I can make a whole video on their team being a mess that they are, but I'm just going to pick the Colts to win here. You could flip a coin here because both these teams are in bad situations at the moment. But I'm going to pick the Colts to win this one 17-13. Next up, we got what I think is going to be a very entertaining game. We got the Ravens taking on the Steelers. The Ravens able to beat the Bengals by 1 point on Thursday Night Football, and the Steelers able to beat their opponent, the Commanders, last week by 1 point. So a lot of similarities with these two teams. Regarding last week, they wasn't pretty for either team, but the old saying's a win's a win, and I don't think any teams exemplify that better than the Ravens and Steelers. And this is gonna be a good game. And this is another flip of a coin, but I am gonna pick the Steelers just because the Steelers, they have a better defense, and I think that's going to matter a lot in this game because their offense is actually playing really well. For considering that it's the Steelers, their offense has been awesome. And also, they know how to stop Lamar. A lot of teams can't stop Lamar, but if there's one team that can, it's the Steelers, and I think that's going to be enough for them to win this one 20-17. Next up, we got one of the most lopsided matchups of Week 11. We got the Jags taking on the Lions. The Jags lost to the Vikings last week, and the Lions, despite throwing 5 interceptions, despite Jared Goff throwing 5 interceptions and being down by 16 at the start of the second half, they still found a way to win that game, improved to 8-1, and I mean, that just proves how dangerous that team is. And I mean, it's the Lions are a team that like they could win the Super Bowl. Like they're the best team in my opinion, and the Jags honestly might be the worst team. So this is obviously not a hard decision here. I'm gonna pick the Lions to win 37-13. Starting off the 4 o'clock slate, we got the Falcons taking on the Broncos. The Falcons losing to the Saints in quite an upset. They had a lot of miscues in that game, and they just let it slip away from them. And the Broncos, they were this close to beating the Chiefs, but they just couldn't make a field goal. And we'll just leave it at that. And yeah, both these teams, I think they're both good teams, but one of them needs to get back on track. Well, they both do, but only one of them will. And I actually do think it's going to be the Broncos. I usually don't pick the Broncos in these types of situations, but honestly, they played so well last week. They honestly should have won that game. I don't know how they couldn't make a fucking field goal, but we'll leave it at that. And yeah, I'm going to pick the Broncos to win this one with a score of 21-17. Moving to our second 4 o'clock game, we have the Seahawks taking on the 49ers. Seahawks had a bye week last week, and the 49ers, with Christian McCaffrey coming back last week, able to beat the Bucs despite their own miscues in that game. They did win, and that's what matters. And, I mean, I don't really need to think about this one too much. I mean, the Seahawks, they have not looked good. They started 3-0, but they've been 1-5 since. And they're a mess right now. And the 49ers, I mean, they started off the season pretty poorly for their standards. They were like, I think 2-3 or 3-4 or something like that. But, I mean, they're starting to pick some things up. And, I mean, now that Christian McCaffrey's back, he's by far their best player on offense. That's only going to help things. And I do think they're going to win. They're at home, and they've been playing better. They are a way more talented team, in my opinion. So I have the 49ers winning this one with a score of 27-13. Moving on, we got an extremely anticipated matchup. We have the Chiefs taking on the Bills, and the Chiefs last week able to beat the Broncos, and the Bills able to beat the Colts. And yeah, this is a game that everyone's had circled for this year, because whenever these two teams play, it's fireworks and more fireworks and more fireworks, and then they just run out of fireworks because these teams just keep putting on a show. And I don't expect this one to be any different, despite the fact that the Chiefs' offense has looked pretty poor this year. I do think they'll still put on a show. I don't see this disappointing. And I am going to pick the Bills here because the Bills are at home. And don't get fooled by the record. The Bills have been playing a lot better than the Chiefs. The Chiefs being 9-0 is a crime against humanity. So I'm going to pick the Bills to win this one with a score of 27-24. Moving on to our Sunday night game, we have the Bengals taking on the Chargers. The Bengals losing by a singular point on Thursday Night Football against their arch rival Ravens. That one's got a sting. And the Chargers able to simply just take care of business against the Titans. That game wasn't really close. And yeah, this should be a good game too. I mean, you got two quarterbacks who have played very well, especially Joe Burrow. Justin Herbert has been starting to pick it up too. And the thing is, the Bengals, I can't trust them. I can trust their offense without question, but their defense has been horrendous. Like, Joe Burrow honestly should be an MVP candidate, but he's never going to get consideration because of how bad the Bengals' record is, because there's things on that team that are out of his control. And I feel like until they fix them, they're just gonna be more of the same. I got the Chargers winning this one 23-20. And ending this week, we got ourselves a good old-fashioned Texas Bowl. We got the Houston Texans taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Texans, I don't know how they lost. On Sunday Night Football, they forced Jared Goff to throw 5 picks. They were up 23-7 at halftime. They lost. So that's definitely not ideal heading into this week. But the Cowboys' loss is even worse. They got absolutely blown out by their division rival Eagles. So that one is undoubtedly worse. And, neither team's looking that great right now, but the Texans have, been better this season. They've beaten better teams. They have a better record. And their coach is better, their quarterback's better. Even if you think Dak is better than CJ Stroud, he's not even playing. He's out for the season. Cowboys, they're a mess right now. I definitely cannot pick them to win this game. I have the Texans winning this game with a score of 22-6. And that's going to do it for this video. Here's all my predictions lined up if you want to take a picture or whatever. And thank you for watching if you've made it to this point, and I will see you guys in my next video.